So, what was the early church like? This is something that shocked me when I found out about it a long while ago. Geez, like 15 years ago. When I found out that there were writings, and I don't know why this thought hadn't crossed my mind before, but there were writings right after the during and immediately after the apostles. Writings from within the first century, and then the early second, and then the mid-second, and the late second, early third, mid-third, late third, all the way up to Nicaea. And the frustrating part about this is that many people use these writings to back up their arguments that they already decided on instead of looking at what it says. Something stupid that Douglas Wilson said was Epiphanius, who wrote in 307 AD 307, complained about a painting of Jesus in a church that was being revered. I believe Eusebius also complains about a statue of Christ outside of a church. And people take this to say, oh, see, icons weren't always accepted. What does that tell you? It tells the exact opposite, that they were prevalent. If this church father is annoyed by it, and an early church chronicler makes a point of saying this congregation is venerating an image of Christ, that means more people than him believe the opposite. They were iconophiles. And of course we have the archaeology from Europa, where we find a first century church as well as a first century synagogue, both covered in murals of scenes of the Old and New Testament. The synagogue wasn't, but that was just the Old Testament. But the church at Europa is covered in very, very recognizable icons. The funny thing is that we see in movies that whenever they show these movies of from like the Middle Ages or whatever, they show these stark white stone cathedrals on the inside. That's what they look like today because of the Reformation. But 500 years ago or more, they would have been bursting with colors. I mean, just walk into any Russian Orthodox church, Greek Orthodox, Antiochian Orthodox church. It's, I mean, some of those colorful icons, you wouldn't expect that from the Russians, but I mean, extremely bright. So, I mean, and then people try to say, oh, you don't see icons in the icons are banned in the Old Testament, when no, they're not. I've dealt with this before. Thou shalt not make a graven image of heavens above, earth below, or that which swims in the sea. But that was making your own gods and worshiping your own gods in pagan idolatry. The Nahash tune was commanded to be crafted, which was a bronze serpent. The Ark of the Covenant, which had 2 cherubim on it, which was said to hold the Spirit of God between its wings. Cherubim they're kind of like the Sphinx, except they had a body of a bull, wings of an eagle, and a head of a man. And the tabernacle had cherubim in there, The temple had 2 gigantic cherubim where the ark itself sat between it. Not to mention that theological point in John that God became man, took upon flesh. Christ is the image of the Father. And then in Galatians, Paul points out to people in northern Anatolia who were not at the crucifixion, you yourselves have seen with your own eyes Christ depicted, portrayed as crucified. So, I mean, not scripturally, not archaeologically, and not testified in the early church whatsoever that iconoclasm is good in any way. I mean, you could agree with Epiphanius, right? But he's complaining about this being a big issue. He personally didn't like iconography. He thought it was wrong. Yet all those churches full of people didn't feel the same way.